Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed. At 1,000 subscribers, I'll be posting a special video. The call dropped right as the client started yelling. For a second I thought it was my headset. I checked the screen, saw the little icon go gray. My manager's name slid from online to away without a word. That was the moment the whole mess landed in my lap. I'm Alex, 29, and I knew I should hang up. Instead I hit redial because of course I did. The client picked up on the first ring and spoke fast. "Our platform is down for everyone, what are you doing?" My hand shook over the keyboard, but I said I had it. I did not have it. Half the dashboard was red, the logs scrolled nonstop. One of our developers grabbed his backpack and watched me. "You staying?" he asked it like it was a bad idea. I told him yes and tried to make it sound smart. He muttered something about unpaid overtime and walked off. The elevator doors closed behind him with a dull thud. I stared at the numbers on the screen, pretending calm. If I admitted panic, I knew I would freeze. So I joked with the client instead, voice way too bright. "Okay, I see the issue, we're on it." That was a lie, we were not on anything. I was alone in an open office that suddenly felt huge. Their project was our biggest account, the one bosses worshipped. If they pulled out, we were all in serious trouble. "How long?" the client asked, no warmth at all. I checked the clock, did quick mental math, lied again. "Give me 30 minutes, I'll stabilize it." Silence answered me, then a short sigh through the speaker. "You'd better, we already sent warnings to our board." As soon as they muted, I messaged my manager again. No answer, not even a fake thumbs up reaction. Group chat was a graveyard, blue icons with old timestamps. Everyone had slipped out right at 5 like always. I stayed because I wanted to be the reliable one. That sounds noble, I know it doesn't come from there. Back then I thought loyalty could shield me from cuts. I also thought my manager actually had a plan. Now writing this, I know I was just convenient. You can feel the difference in your stomach once it clicks. I pulled up the client environment and killed a few processes. Error messages stacked up like falling blocks on the monitor. I forced a restart, then listened to the fans spin hard. For a few long seconds, nothing came back, nothing at all. I pictured the client watching numbers drop somewhere, waiting to pounce. They unmuted suddenly. "Status," the word snapped through my headset. "Restarting key services now, you should see improvement soon." My voice did that brittle, confident thing I use under pressure. It sounds fine until you hear the crack underneath it. "We have our CEO here, do not screw this up." That line punched through my chest more than it should. I promised them frequent updates, something every 10 minutes. I set a timer on my phone, short, brutal countdown. 10 minutes is nothing when you're fighting a fire. First update, nothing looked better. Graphs dipped, then flattened in all the wrong places. I muted myself, cursed, then unmuted with a steady breath. "We're stabilizing core components now, you should feel some relief." Another lie stacked on a pile I pretended was strategy. I pinged another coworker directly, the quiet guy from QA. "Home," he replied, then added a tired smile emoji. "You see the outage," I typed fast, thumb slamming glass. "Yeah, rough, good luck tonight," appeared a moment later. He was done, his boundary was simple, and he kept it. I wish I could say I resented him even then. Truth is, I envied how easily he logged off. I had the same badge, the same job title, nothing special. I was the one still hunched at a desk after hours. Because I thought this was my shot to stand out. On minute 20, the first green blip returned. A tiny service came back online, almost by accident. I grabbed that small win and sold it hard. Core authentication is recovering, traffic should normalize soon. In reality, it was one container limping along in pain. "Good, keep us updated," the client said, then muted again. That mute button became a loaded gun to me. Anytime they pressed it, I imagined side conversations, blame. I pictured my company name in some angry executive email. My stomach clenched tighter every time their tiny icon dimmed. Another ping finally came from my manager. "How bad is it?" Short message, no greeting, no apology. I sent him a screenshot, read everywhere, uptime dropping fast. "Okay, stay on with them, I'll loop others in." He went quiet after that, like dropping smoke in a room. Looking back, that was my first big sign. If your leader vanishes when the dam cracks, pay attention. Back then I saw it as trust, him letting me lead. Now I see it as distance, him dodging the blast. Strange how the same silence can mean two opposite things. The timer shrieked again, another 10 minutes gone. I unmuted, gave them more half good news, half nonsense. We're past tea. He worst, now stabilizing under higher load. The CEO asked for a number, not vague comfort. I told them we were 60% recovered, random guess. They took that number like it was carved in stone. Fine, we hold announcements for now, the CEO replied. If I'd said 30%, everything that night might shift. It's terrifying how one fake statistic can redirect an entire night. I only understood that much later, way past the damage. While things crawled back up, I checked train times. Last train out gave me a thin window of escape. If I left in 15 minutes, I could still make it. My finger hovered over the disconnect button for a beat. The client unmuted again right then, saving me from myself. We're seeing improvement in some regions, still heavy issues elsewhere. That sentence slammed the door on my little exit plan. I heard myself say, I'll stay until everything is normal. Those words locked me into a promise nobody forced. I chose my cage, then decorated it with duty. It sounds dramatic now, but that moment mattered. Nobody ordered me, nobody threatened my paycheck, nobody yelled. They hinted, they praised my dedication, they leaned on my fear. That was enough to keep me in the chair. Fear plus flattery can do more damage than open threats. Midnight slid past while I chased one stubborn issue. A batch process kept crashing under load every few minutes. Every restart brought a brief calm, then another messy collapse. The client heard me breathing and asked if I was okay. I'm good, I said, as my vision blurred for a second. Do you have support with you? One of them asked. I almost laughed because the answer felt so stupid. Yes, the team is online, I'm coordinating things here. Another lie, because I hated admitting I was abandoned. I'd rather fake a crowd than own my own isolation. My manager popped in again with a short message. Great work staying on, leadership is aware of your effort. My brain latched onto that like sugar after fasting. Leadership is aware sounds harmless, but it hits deep. It told me this suffering meant something, that it counted. You'll talk to them on Monday, keep it up tonight. That was the sentence, the one that sealed everything. I read it 3 times, heart pounding with weird pride. I imagined some director saying my name in a meeting. I did not imagine how fast they would forget it. Around 1:30, the system finally held steady. Graphs flattened in the right direction, errors slowed down. I watched for 10 full minutes before believing it. Stability looks good now, I think we're in the clear. The client unmuted, voices overlapping in a rush of relief. Okay, thank you, we appreciate your effort tonight. It sounded formal, but I grabbed onto the words. I expected anger, instead I got controlled gratitude. We'll need a detailed incident report by Monday morning. Of course, the prize for fixing a mess is more work. We ended the call with stiff, polite goodnights. When the screen went dark, the office felt even emptier. The building hummed around me with that dead after-hours quiet. I sat back, suddenly aware of my own heartbeat again. The adrenaline drained fast, leaving a heavy ache in my chest. I packed my stuff in a daze and checked the time. Last train was gone, long gone, nothing left to catch. Rideshare prices spiked with late-night surge charges. The fare number on my screen made me wince hard. Half a day's pay just to get home from my own hero act. I stood there for a full minute, bag over shoulder. Part of me wanted to sleep under the desk, no joke. Another part wanted to call my manager, ask for help. I put my phone down instead, pride louder than reason. I walked out into the night, pretending this was no big deal. The street was almost empty, just the occasional car. I started walking toward the bus routes I half remembered. Every step made my legs heavier and my head lighter. I replayed the night in loops, tweaking my own lines. I kept hearing that promise about Monday like a song. You know that thing where you rewrite a conversation later. You add smarter answers, cooler reactions, sharper comebacks. I did that with this whole outage, step by step. In my rewrites, I sounded calm and in control. In reality, my hands shook on the mouse the whole time. By the time I reached a main road, my feet throbbed. No buses, no cabs, just a long dark stretch ahead. I finally hit confirm on the overpriced rideshare. When the car arrived, the driver glanced at my badge. Late night, he said, like it explained everything and nothing. Yeah, production meltdown, I answered with a tired half laugh. He nodded like he'd heard that kind of line before. I watched the office building shrink in the mirror behind us. The windows looked blank now, no sign of the chaos. You'd never guess someone just nearly lost their job inside there. On the ride home, messages from my manager kept popping up. Client happy you saved the relationship tonight. Leadership wants your name on the incident report hero section. Those words lit me up more than I want to admit. I stared at them, grinning like I'd just won something huge. Here's the part that stings to remember. I felt lucky, not used, not yet, not that night. I thought this was the first step toward something bigger. Promotion, raise, at least a title that sounded impressive. I did not see the pattern forming under my own hands. When I finally crawled into bed, the sky was pale. My alarm for the regular workday sat a few hours away. I lay there wired, too tired to sleep, mind racing. Monday will be worth it, I told myself again. I really believed that then, which is almost funny now. Because that night did not stay special. It became the template, the expectation, the quiet rule. Any future fire, my name would be the first spoken. They learned I would stay late and bend until morning. I learned it much slower, one burned weekend at a time. On Monday morning, my manager appeared beside my chair. No hello, just a sharp tap on my desk. Conference room now. My stomach clenched before my brain caught up. I followed him, already bracing for blame. Inside, a director I barely knew waited with arms crossed. My manager took the chair closest to him like backup. They looked at me for a second, long enough to sting. I prepared an apology, the whole script already forming. Instead, the director smiled in this quick, controlled way. You pulled off something impressive on Friday. That sentence knocked my apology right out of my mouth. They started listing numbers about uptime and retention. The director kept nodding like he was checking boxes. I sat there stupidly proud, like a kid with a trophy. You stayed until everything was stable, correct? The director leaned forward on that word. I answered yes, a little faster than I meant. Good, we need that kind of commitment around here. The word commitment landed heavy, but it still felt flattering. They talked about ownership and going the extra mile. Every phrase sounded shiny, like a badge I should want. I kept nodding, chasing their approval with every movement. This is why we trust you with our key accounts. That line hooked into me deeper than anything else. Then came the small twist I missed in the moment. We'd like you to be our point person for critical issues. My manager watched my reaction, eyes just a bit too sharp. It won't be constant, just when something serious happens. I said yes before my brain even weighed the cost. The director stood, already done with the conversation. We notice people who lean in when it counts. He clapped my shoulder like we were old friends. My manager smiled once we were alone in the room. See, this is how you build a future here. Walking back to my desk, I replayed that sentence. Build a future. I grabbed onto it like it was solid ground. I told myself this was proof the night had mattered. I did not ask what point person would look like in practice. The first test came faster than I expected. After lunch, another team lead rolled his chair toward mine. Hey, quick favor, you already know that client's system. He had a request ticket open, error details flashing red. I promised them a fast fix, can you jump on it? I still had my own work stacked up. Deadlines blinking at me from my project dashboard. I thought about pushing back just a little. Instead, I pulled the request over and said sure. He thanked me and rolled away, already off the hook. That became the rhythm faster than I want to admit. Someone would wander over with an urgent issue. My inbox filled with messages that started the same way. You're the only one who really understands this. They said it like praise, but it pinned me down. One afternoon, a teammate dropped a whole folder on my desk. Can you cover these for me? I have to leave early. He sounded almost guilty, eyes not quite meeting mine. I already told them you'd follow up tonight. He was out the door before my answer fully formed. I stared at the new workload, then at the clock. Leaving on time vanished with one careless handoff. I could have marched to his chair and pushed back. I pictured the awkward conversation, the rolled eyes, the gossip. I sat down and opened the first file instead. Here is where the mental gymnastics really started. I told myself I was building influence with every favor. That people would remember who covered for them when it mattered. I imagined secret tallies being kept somewhere upstairs. That story felt nicer than the truth, so I clung to it. Messages from my manager started changing tone that week. Loop Alex, they know this environment best. Send that to Alex, they handle pressure well. Every time my name appeared like that, my chest warmed. Every time another piece of my actual job slipped side. Ways. I paid the price in quiet ways at first. Reviews on my regular projects came back with pointed notes. Execution delayed due to competing priorities. Need stronger focus on planned deliverables. Nobody linked those comments to all the emergencies I absorbed. One evening I stood up to finally go home. My bag was on my shoulder, jacket halfway on. Across the floor, my manager lifted a hand. Got a minute, we just got a call. I set the bag down without even thinking. He put the client on speaker in a small meeting room. Their launch had glitched, users locked out mid-process. You helped them last time, can you look now? He handed me the keyboard like a relay baton. He lingered just long enough to look involved, then slipped out. I stayed there through another late evening, chasing errors. This time there was no adrenaline, just slow grinding fatigue. The client kept asking if I was still online. Yeah, still here working through it, I replied each time. Nobody else joined the call, no matter how bad it got. When we finally stabilized that mess, my shoulders ached. I walked past my manager's office before heading out. He glanced up, already packing his own things. Appreciate you staying on, you make us look good. That comment stuck in my head longer than any bonus. Make us look good. Not how are you holding up. Not let's talk about time off after this push. Just confirmation that my exhaustion improved his image. I noticed the wording, then shoved the thought aside. Favors from coworkers kept multiplying after that. Someone needed coverage for a client review, they were double booked. You're great with upset customers, can you step in? I nodded while opening their slides, shoving my tasks lower. Their grateful smile felt huge in the moment, then evaporated. I watched who stayed late and who didn't. Most people packed up right on schedule, earbuds already in. They did not even glance at the open incidents board. I tried not to resent them, they were just following norms. The real shift was in my own behavior, not theirs. Little by little, my calendar filled with unplanned meetings. Quick alignments that always appeared last minute. Urgent calls that somehow always included my name. My actual responsibilities squeezed into early mornings and scraps. I started eating at my desk because breaks felt irresponsible. You know that sensation when your brain hums all the time. Not in a fun-focused way, more like static. I would wake up already replaying conversations in my head. Rehearsing how to respond if something crashed while I was out. I stopped leaving my phone in another room on purpose. The first weekend request came as a short text. Saturday, just after I'd sat down with coffee. Hey, need quick help, client can only talk today. My thumb hovered over the screen for a beat. I could feel a line in the sand right under me. I typed back, yes, of course. We jumped on a call with the client's new manager. They wanted changes pushed before Monday to impress their boss. It shouldn't take long if you handle the technical side. I watched my free day shrink inside a tiny progress bar. While I debugged, a friend messaged asking about plans. They reminded me I'd promised to go out that night. I stared at the chat window, thinking of excuses. Work emergency, maybe next time, I finally wrote back. They left it on read for a long stretch. The pattern grew teeth over the next month. Anytime a deadline loomed, people looked toward my chair. When clients booked odd-hour calls, my name went first. You're already synced with them, saves ramp-up time. That logic sounded efficient, but it also trapped me. Little comments started floating around that sounded harmless. If anything blows up, Alex will catch it. You know they'll answer even after hours. People laughed while they said it, like an inside joke. I laughed too, right up until I realized it wasn't funny. I kept telling myself I had control here. That I could say no if things crossed some invisible line. But saying no once felt like risking everything I had built. So I postponed that imaginary boundary to the next request. And the next, always a day away. My manager began looping me into higher level discussions. At first, it felt like proof that this grind was working. He invited me to planning calls with directors and sales. During those calls, my role was always the same: explain the mess, promise a fix, then quietly own the fallout. There was one meeting that still rings in my ears. A sales lead pitched an aggressive rollout for a new contract. Someone raised concerns about support, about bandwidth, about burnout. My manager waved it away with a light tone. "We have people who thrive under pressure, especially Alex." All eyes landed on me across the table. I forced a small confident nod, throat dry. No one asked if I actually thrived under that load. They just accepted the narrative and moved on to timelines. In that moment, my role stopped being negotiable in their minds. Afterward, in the hallway, my manager clapped my shoulder. "See, this is good visibility for you." I smiled and made some joke about not sleeping much. He laughed and called me a machine in this approving way. My chest tightened at that word, but I pretended it was praise. I started keeping snacks in my drawer to avoid leaving. Short bursts of fuel between endless chats and urgent calls. If I walked to the break room, something always exploded. So I trained myself to stay tethered to the screen. Even my bathroom breaks turned into sprints between notifications. One night close to midnight, I caught my reflection. Just a faint shape in the dark glass behind my monitor. There was a weird jolt seeing myself still there. Everyone else had gone home hours earlier, lights long off. I stood up slowly, feeling older than I actually was. On the way out, I passed the incident board. Almost everything listed there had my initials beside it. At first, I felt a flicker of twisted pride. Look how necessary I am, look how they rely on me. Underneath that, something colder finally stirred. This is where the foreshadowing lives, even if I missed it. Being the dependable one is nice until it becomes a cage. When people assume you will accept anything, lines start blurring. Requests stop sounding like favors and start sounding like orders. Soon, what they ask you to help with will cross a very different line. By the time I saw the word audit on the screen, my boss had already locked the door. HR sat across from me with a laptop half closed. Nobody spoke for a few long beats, which is never good. I kept my hands flat on the table, pretending calm. Inside, everything braced for impact I could not dodge. My boss turned the laptop around so I could see. Rows of numbers filled the display, all time entries. My name showed up again and again in thick, bold text. Long stretches of logged work stacked into ridiculous totals. HR watched my face like they were waiting for a confession. "You know why you're here?" my boss asked finally. I opened my mouth, then shut it again fast. A dozen possible reasons flashed through my head at once. None of them involved this neat grid of hours. I went with the safest answer I could manage. "I'm guessing this is about my schedule." HR moved the laptop slightly closer, a careful push. "Labor is reviewing our records next week," they said quietly. They flagged some patterns that stand out, mostly around you. Their fingers tapped beside my name, over and over. "These logs show you working some extreme stretches." My boss pointed at a week with 3 late nights. 60 plus hours here, 72 over there. HR added a tight little smile that did nothing helpful. That level of overtime raises questions we do not want. My first instinct was stupid pride, I will admit that. Seeing the totals laid out like that twisted something inside. All those late evenings finally looked real, not just vibes. For half a second, it felt like proof of effort. That feeling died the moment my boss kept talking. "On paper, this suggests we rely on uncompensated overtime." Their tone made uncompensated sound like a forbidden word. Regulators see that, they start assuming broader issues. HR nodded, hands folded so tight their knuckles lightened. "We need to demonstrate healthy practices before they arrive." I already knew where this was going, I just resisted it. Healthy practices meaning I stopped staying late. I tried a weak joke, hoping for some release. Neither of them laughed, which told me everything. They were not here to talk about future behavior. "We need to harmonize the past records first." My boss slid a printed sheet across to me. It listed my weeks with new neat target totals. These are the ranges we want reflected in the system. HR watched carefully, waiting to see if I understood. It took a second for the request to click. You want me to go change the logs? My voice came out flatter than I planned. Just tidy them, bring them in line with standard expectations. My boss used that word tidy like this was about formatting. I looked from the paper to the screen, then back. Every late night, every weekend session, all right there. They wanted to slice pieces off and hide the rest. You know, I actually worked these hours, right? I needed to say it out loud, mostly for myself. HR shifted in their chair, like the floor got warmer. No one is denying your dedication, we appreciate it. Their tone slid around the actual problem like oil. What we are managing is perception, not your commitment. That sentence hit harder than any direct threat could. My boss leaned forward, elbows on the table now. Look, no one told you to stay that long. They paused, letting that judgment hang between us. When you choose to remain online, it distorts the picture. The word distort stung, like my effort was some kind of stain. I pushed back once, just once, and I still replay it. So the issue is that I tried too hard. My boss exhaled sharply, almost a laugh, almost something else. The issue is that regulators are not subtle about penalties. HR added a quick nod, as if to underline the warning. If they see this, they can fine the company heavily. HR's voice dropped lower, like sharing a secret. They can also dig further into pay practices, expense policies, everything. My boss spread their hands, helpless gesture that never fooled me. That puts everyone's roles at risk, not just yours. There it was. Not said directly, but clear enough to taste. If I refused, I was not just difficult, I was dangerous. A problem to manage instead of a person to support. I felt my throat tighten while my face stayed neutral. HR tapped the printed sheet again with one careful finger. All we are asking is that you adjust outlier entries. They avoided words like delete and alter, but we heard them. Bring your weeks closer to policy guidance around salaried staff. They used policy guidance the way others say line in the sand. What about the nights I handled client issues alone? The question left my mouth before I censored it. Those hours were sitting right there in the data. My boss shrugged, eyes sliding off mine for a second. We appreciate those nights, this is a different conversation. That answer told me exactly how much those emergencies mattered. They counted until they became a legal hazard, then not. I looked at the sheet again, every target number smaller. They wanted me to carve away whole evenings, entire weekends. Erase the only proof that I had carried their messes. You could adjust them yourself, I said finally. It came out harsher than I meant, tired and raw. My boss gave a small displeased smile that never reached their eyes. That would not be appropriate, we cannot own your timesheets. HR jumped in before I could respond, voice quick and smooth. Only you can certify your hours are accurate. They nearly choked on the word accurate, I swear. So you log in, align them with policy, confirm them. I sat there stunned at how clean the sentence sounded. Dress a lie in corporate phrasing, and it slides easier. My head started buzzing in that way it does under stress. I could hear my own pulse louder than their voices. They were still talking, stacking justifications like sandbags. Everyone adjusts entries sometimes, the tools are there for flexibility. Think of this as correcting enthusiasm that went too far. That line almost made me laugh and also yell. Correcting enthusiasm. My overtime turned into an overactive hobby in one phrase. They talked like I had stayed late for my own amusement. Like the company just accidentally benefited every single time. I stared down at my hands, noticing a faint tremor. I knew what the safe answer was in that room. Say yes, keep the role, hope things smooth out later. Walk out, make the edits, swallow the guilt like medicine. I also knew that once I started, stopping would be harder. Do I get anything in writing about this? The question slipped out before I could reel it back. My boss's head snapped up fast, eyes narrowed. This is not a disciplinary matter, this is collaboration. HR added a quick follow-up, voice extra light now. Documentation would complicate something that is already sensitive. That was the moment I realized how deep we were. They wanted my fingerprints on every altered line, nothing on theirs. My boss watched my reaction closely, waiting for a crack. I swallowed the first angry answer that formed on my tongue. You might be thinking you would have walked out. Closed the laptop, left the building, found a lawyer immediately. I used to tell myself I was that kind of person. In that room, with rent and loans in the background, I folded. Not all at once, more like a slow bend I pretended was stretching. I'll change them, I heard myself say eventually. The words landed like someone else had spoken them. HR's shoulders loosened, tiny shift that said everything. My boss smiled, relieved and satisfied in the same breath. I knew we could count on you to be practical. They escorted me back to my workstation like I was precious cargo. HR stood behind me while I opened the time system. My boss hovered nearby, not too near, not too distant. I pulled up the first flagged week, long lines of hours. My finger hesitated over the edit button, just 1 second. HR spoke softly into that hesitation. Remember, just bring the totals closer to policy targets. Their hand rested on the back of my chair, light pressure. Think about sustainability, nobody can maintain those old numbers. They framed it as self-care, which almost made me choke. I started trimming. A late evening became a regular day with a normal endpoint. Weekend entries disappeared entirely, like they never happened. Lunch breaks appeared in the middle of crisis calls. Each save felt small by itself, but together they rewrote a month. My boss watched one of the edited days refresh on the screen. See, that looks much more reasonable already. They tapped the desk once, an approving little drum beat. Once you align a few more weeks, audits will go smoothly. They spoke like we were cleaning data, not hiding exhaustion. How far back do you want this done? I already knew the answer. I still asked. Anywhere the totals look excessive, you can judge that. My boss handed that decision to me like it was a favor. It was really a way to avoid saying the ugly part themselves. HR eventually left, satisfied the process was underway. My boss lingered a moment longer, hand on the doorframe. Thank you for being a team player on this. Team player, another shiny label to tape over the mess. Then they were gone, leaving me alone with the numbers. I sat there and kept going because stopping felt worse. If I quit halfway, the pattern would be obvious. So I have nights, erase Sundays, padded weekdays with fake breaks. Every click rubbed out one more proof that I had overworked. I watched my own history shrink into something bland and dishonest. Somewhere in that process, something inside me flipped orientation. Before I saw myself as the reliable fixer, a bit dramatic. Now I was the person adjusting evidence to protect management. The shift was quiet, but it settled in deep. I understood that this was not about one audit anymore. By the time I finished the last week, my eyes burned. I reran the report, watched the totals drop into neat ranges. If someone looked now, they would see a moderate workload. No hint of the nights I sat here half asleep. No trace of the weekends I traded for their stability. I logged out and just stared at the blank screen. My badge still hung around my neck, suddenly heavier. If I raised concerns later, they could point back to this. Why complain now? You certified those records yourself, remember. I had just built their defense with my own hands. Walking out that evening, the office felt different somehow. Same walls, same hum of machines, same stale air. The difference was in how I saw the people leading us. They were not just careless anymore, they were comfortable crossing lines. And now they knew I could be pushed across with them. On the day my body quit, I dropped my mug on the keyboard. Hot liquid spread over the keys and I just watched. I did not even jump back fast enough to dodge it. My fingers felt slow, like they belonged to someone else. Messages kept stacking on the side of the screen anyway. Status on the patch. Client wants confirmation before they wake Europe. Need firm timing, cannot go into morning without it. Each line hit harder than the last, pounding in my skull. I wiped the keys with my sleeve and kept typing. I had been awake for too long by then. I could not tell you the exact number of hours. I only know my eyes hurt when I blinked. My head felt stuffed with damp cotton and static. Still, my hands moved over the keyboard on autopilot. My manager pinged again in the leadership channel. Confirmed deployment window, client leadership is on alert. The phrase leadership is on alert made me work faster. My chest squeezed each time a new notification flashed. My breathing turned shallow without me really noticing it. I pushed the update to the staging environment and waited. Lines of logs raced by, none of them fully registering. I caught one warning, then another, then dismissed both. We do not have time to overthink this tonight. I whispered it out loud just to keep going. Ready for production yet? My manager sent that one directly, no greeting. I stared at the question and fought the urge to stall. Technically, I should have tested more before answering yes. Instead, I hit send and hoped my luck held. We started the call with the client at some awful hour. Their technical lead sounded wired, not tired, which unnerved me. Morning all, we need clean execution on this release. I recognized that tone, the one that expects perfection. I promised them a smooth rollout my body could not deliver. While we talked, the room spun for a second. It was quick, just a tiny tilt of the floor. I tightened my grip on the mouse to steady myself. Network looks clear, I said, still pretending everything was fine. I did not mention the weird buzzing in my arms. We kicked off the change and watched the counters. Usage climbed, responses stayed steady, nothing broke at first. My shoulders dropped half an inch in cautious relief. The client started discussing follow-up items for next week. I was already drafting the incident summary in my head. Then my vision narrowed, like someone pinched the edges inward. The text on the screen blurred into a single gray stripe. I heard someone on the call ask my name sharply. My tongue felt thick when I tried to answer. Whatever I said came out as a half-formed sound. I remember my hand slipping off the mouse. The next clear image is the carpet close to my face. Voices overlapped above me, too loud and too distant. Are you all right? Get help. Call emergency. The call still ran on the laptop, forgotten for a moment. Someone rolled me onto my back while cursing under their breath. My heart hammered in my chest like it wanted out. I could not feel my feet for a few terrifying seconds. Stay with us, do you hear me? A palm pressed firmly against my shoulder, holding me there. The laptop speaker still carried the client's questions into the room. Is something going on at your end? We lost audio from your engineer. Nobody answered them right away, which almost made me laugh. It took collapsing on the floor to silence me, apparently. A coworker reached over and closed the call with shaking fingers. Technical difficulties, we will reconnect, they muttered quickly. They grabbed my phone from the desk and unlocked it. Who do we notify for you? I could barely force out my manager's name between uneven breaths. The ambulance ride came in flashes, not a full reel. Cool plastic under my back, strapped snug across my chest. A paramedic shone a light in my eyes and frowned. Any history of heart problems? I managed a rough no, then coughed hard. How long have you been working without real rest? They asked it casually while attaching sticky pads to my skin. I tried to count, then gave up halfway through. A lot of hours, big release tonight, lost track. Their mouth tightened, but they did not stop moving. My phone buzzed in my pocket even there. I felt the vibration against my leg and almost laughed. The paramedic caught the look and shook their head. Whatever that is can wait until after we check you. Part of me already argued with that idea in silence. At the hospital, a nurse hooked me to monitors quickly. Lines on the screen jumped with every beat of my heart. Good news, no sign of a heart attack right now. They studied my chart and then my face with equal focus. Bad news, your body is beyond worn down. They asked about caffeine, sleep, food, all the basic stuff. I listened to my own answers like someone else spoke them. Coffee instead of breakfast, snack at the desk, quick dinner. Naps on weekends sometimes if work allows breathing space. I realized how broken it sounded as the words escaped. Your blood pressure is elevated, your labs show strain. The nurse folded their arms, clearly unimpressed with my habits. Stress alone can knock you flat like this, you know. I nodded, but my mind already drifted back to the office. I pictured the deployment still running, graphs shifting without me. The doctor came in with a tablet and a tired expression. They scrolled through my results and clicked their tongue softly. Your body threw the brakes on for a reason. They asked about my schedule, and I gave the edited version. Even my explanation of my workload came filtered out of habit. If you continue at this pace, you will see us again. The doctor delivered that line like it was a guarantee. I am recommending time off and serious adjustment of hours. They looked up, waiting to see if I fought the suggestion. Of course I did, just not out loud yet. My phone kept lighting up on the tray beside the bed. I finally reached for it when the doctor stepped out. 3 messages from my manager stacked at the top. How bad is it? Are you still reachable by chat? Client wants confirmation that the release completed successfully. Not one word that sounded like actual concern at first. Just logistics, deliverables, external expectations, the usual background noise. I stared at the messages and felt something twist hard. Look, I get that business keeps moving, I do. Still, the timing hit like a slap across the face. I typed back with stiff fingers, trying not to shake. They are running tests, I passed out at my desk. Long pause, then a new bubble appeared with agonizing slowness. Damn, okay, keep me posted when you hear more. Another bubble followed almost immediately, like a reflex. Before you rest, can you confirm the deployment logs? I read that line 3 times just to be sure. My thumb hovered over the screen while my heart pounded. Even lying there with wires on me, I felt guilty. Guilty for not jumping back online to save their schedule. I did something small that still embarrasses me now. I asked the nurse if I could borrow the Wi-Fi. They raised an eyebrow so high it almost reached their hairline. So you can relax with a movie or what? I mumbled something about needing to check one last thing. They sighed and rolled their eyes but typed the password. I cannot chain you to the bed, but listen closely. T8. I leaned in so I had no choice but to focus. If your work is what put you here, you treat it like poison. That sentence carved itself into my brain whether I wanted it or not. I logged into the system from the hospital bed anyway. Every heartbeat showed up on the monitor beside me. The deployment summary loaded after a long, tense moment. Status green across the board, no rollback, no chaos. My shoulders sagged in relief and disgust at the same time. I grabbed a screenshot and sent it to my manager. Release completed, metrics stable, no action needed now. Response came almost instantly, like they had been hovering. Knew you could handle it even from there. Then finally, one more line tagged onto the end. Also feel better, of course. That last word hung there like an afterthought. Not even a full sentence, just a thin patch over everything. I stared at it, waiting for something more human. Nothing else followed, just silence from that chat window. A coworker dropped by later with a plastic bag of clothes. They stood at the foot of the bed, shifting their weight. Your episode shook people up downstairs, they admitted quietly. Leadership called it an unfortunate resourcing blip in the stand-up. The phrase resourcing blip made my stomach turn. They mentioned you by name as a single point of failure. My coworker picked at the edge of the blanket nervously. They framed it like a compliment, like you are essential. I could picture the meeting, the nods, the fake concern. I could also hear the unspoken part under all that. If one person collapsing counts as a risk, the solution is simple. You either spread the load or find someone who will not collapse. We both knew which option they preferred, and it was not balance. My coworker sighed and finally lifted their gaze to mine. You need to start letting stuff drop or they will break you. I wanted to argue, to claim more control than I had. Instead, I asked the most pathetic question possible. Did anyone say we should adjust workloads after this? My coworker gave a humorless laugh that sounded almost painful. They said we should cross-train so no one else becomes indispensable. Indispensable. They still used that word in public like a shiny sticker. In private, they worried more about coverage charts than human limits. It was strange hearing both angles in the same afternoon. Part of me still wanted to believe the prettier version. The doctor returned with discharge papers and firm instructions. At least a few days away from that place, they insisted. Real rest, real food, actual sleep, not quick naps between emails. They asked if my manager understood the seriousness of this event. I pictured the messages about logs and just nodded vaguely. Stress will not disappear by itself, the doctor added quietly. Either boundaries change or your body will keep forcing interruptions. That line hit harder than any lecture could have. Because I knew which option my workplace would choose. They preferred forced interruptions over investing in actual fixes. Back at home, I lay on the couch and stared upward. My phone sat on the table within easy reach, buzzing. New notifications arrived from group channels and direct chats. One from my manager popped up near the top. Once you are back, we need you on another critical situation. No break, no buffer, just a pivot to the next emergency. They mentioned a different client already raising concerns about stability. Try to rest up, we will need you sharp soon. That last line almost made me laugh out loud. They cared about my performance, not my existence, let us be honest. I muted the chats for the first time in months. My thumb hovered over the switch like it weighed a ton. When the icon finally changed, the quiet in the room deepened. I should have felt relieved, proud even, for taking that step. Instead, I felt like I had abandoned a burning building. Here is the ugly part I hate admitting. If they had called that night and begged outright, I might have logged back in. Not because I loved the job, but because the habit ran that deep. Saying no felt more dangerous than my own heart racing. That realization scared me more than the collapse itself. Lying there watching the muted screen, something finally clicked different. They would keep drawing from me as long as I produced. They would treat fainting at work as a minor outage. They would wrap my crisis in sanitized phrases and move on. The only person who could decide to stop burning was me. I found out they were replacing me while I was logged in fixing their mess again. A link flashed in the general channel, one of those company updates. Exciting opportunity in client operations, the caption said, way too upbeat. I almost scrolled past it, reflex more than choice. Something made me click, and I still wish I had not. The job description loaded, and my chest went tight fast. Same client list I handled, same platforms, same late coverage expectations. They even mentioned handling high-pressure incidents during off hours. Line after line matched what I did on autopilot. Only the title and pay band were different, both higher. At first I thought maybe they were finally formalizing my role. I checked the location and reporting structure just to be sure. It showed the same department, same manager, same floor. The posting date hit me harder than all of that. It had gone up a week before I hit the floor. I sat there staring at the date until the text blurred. Nobody had spoken to me about growth, change, anything. They had watched me collapse, then quietly advertised a replacement. You know that feeling when your stomach drops out under you? That is exactly how it felt, only slower and meaner. A new message popped up from my manager while I stared. Need you on a follow-up call in 10, important. No context, no check-in, just another demand. I dragged my gaze from the posting and opened the invite. My hands shook so hard I nearly missed the join button. The client came on with tense voices and sharp questions. They wanted explanations, timelines, assurances about future coverage. I went through the motions, answered what they wanted. Words came out of my mouth on autopilot again. Inside, something that used to care had gone quiet. After the call, my manager pinged me directly. Great job smoothing that over, they trust you. That sentence used to feel like a reward almost. Now it just landed cold, like a warning label. The job posting tab glowed behind the chat window. I took a screenshot of the listing before doing anything else. Not just one, several from different pages with timestamps. I emailed them to my personal account with a bland subject. Then I archived the messages in case anyone got curious. I did it calmly, which scared me more than panic. Once I started, I could not stop cataloging things. I pulled the chat logs from the day of the audit. The ones where HR used softened phrases for hard demands. I saved the file where my manager said regulators would punish us. I grabbed the calendar invite for that closed-door meeting. Next came the hospital day messages, which hurt the most. The string where my manager asked about logs from my bed. The part where they joked about me handling things from there. Seeing it all lined up in one thread made me nauseous. It looked worse collected than it had felt in real time. I exported my schedule history with every odd hour highlighted. The weekends labeled critical, the late evenings called urgent. Even after altering my hours, the pattern still showed. Gaps where I had erased entries looked strange and jagged. You could see the shape of what had been removed. I kept dropping files into a private folder named something boring. Nothing that would draw attention, just a random project label. From there, I copied everything to a drive I owned. Every few minutes, I glanced over my shoulder for no reason. It felt like stealing from a place that had already stolen plenty. You might judge me for not walking straight to HR. I thought about it more than once while dragging those files. But I already knew which side they stood on from before. They had coached me into rewriting hours with straight faces. I needed someone who was not on their payroll. That night, instead of logging into another late call, I searched for attorneys. I skimmed through websites until one line caught my eye. Employment law with focus on retaliation and wage issues. I filled out the contact form before I could overthink it. When they offered a consultation, I grabbed the first slot. Sitting in that office later, I felt ridiculous and wired. My folder of printed screenshots looked messy and overstuffed. The lawyer flipped through pages while I stumbled through explanations. Every time I tried to soften something, they lifted a hand. Say it exactly how it happened, tidy versions do not help. I told them about the audit meeting and the pressure. I described changing my hours while HR hovered behind me. I listed the calls where leadership praised my dedication during crises. Then I got to the collapse in the hospital. My voice cracked when I repeated the messages from that day. The lawyer leaned back, eyes sharp now, jaw forward. This is not just about burnout, they said slowly. This touches wage law, record manipulation, and potential retaliation. They tapped the job posting screenshot with a short, decisive motion. And this opens a different front entirely. I asked the question that had been circling my head. Did I sink my own case when I edited those hours? They shook their head once, steady, no hesitation at all. You were instructed verbally by people with authority over you. These messages show context for why you complied under pressure. They outlined options, each one heavier than the last. File a complaint while still there and brace for backlash. Wait until I exited, then bring everything through official channels. Or send a letter now and watch how the company reacted. Every path involved risk, none involved going back to how things were. The truth is, my decision had already formed before that meeting. Seeing the job posting just snapped it into focus. I had stayed too long convincing myself I could fix this. The collapse should have been my wake-up call, but I snoozed it. The listing felt like someone dumping cold water on my face. We agreed on a sequence that would not blindside me. Document quietly, avoid new questionable instructions, do not alter more records. Then resign cleanly with a neutral letter, no extra commentary. After that, let the formal complaint carry the loud part. That plan felt both terrifying and like finally exhaling. Back at work, I started practicing a new word. No. First with small things, like random extra meetings after hours. Can this wait until tomorrow? I am at capacity today. People blinked surprised, then usually found someone else. My manager noticed the shift within a few days. They called me into a room with the glass walls. Is everything all right? You are less responsive than usual. They leaned back like they were being supportive and open. I watched the performance and felt nothing but tired. I am following medical advice and working a normal week. I kept my voice level, hands folded on the table. Late emergencies need to be rotated, not placed on one person. For a second, I thought they might actually hear that. Then their mouth tightened in that familiar impatient line. You know, clients expect consistency from their main contact. There it was, the old argument dressed up again. They trust you, moving that responsibility around could spook them. I countered before I lost nerve and slid back. Clients can trust a team, not just one exhausted individual. Silence stretched between us, thick and uncomfortable. They dropped their eyes to the table, then back to me. Look, this is not a threat, just reality. We need people we can rely on when situations get rough. I shared that expectation with leadership. They are watching. I heard what they really meant under the words. If I kept pulling back, they would find someone who would not. They already had a posting open with my tasks spelled out. I almost laughed from the bitter irony of it. Instead, I let the quiet sit until they shifted again. I saw the new role advertised last week, I said calmly. Their expression flickered for a split second, just enough. It describes exactly what I currently handle, even the off-hour part. They straightened in the chair and forced an easy smile. That position is to support you, not replace you. I looked at them long enough that the smile thinned. Interesting timing, considering it went live before I collapsed. Their jaw clenched, then relaxed like they caught themselves. Growth planning takes time, those processes move months ahead. Do not read drama into standard resource planning. I could have argued 10 different angles right there. Instead, I gave a small nod and let it drop outwardly. Inside, their reaction just confirmed what I already believed. They were not going to fix anything unless someone forced them. That someone was clearly not going to be a loyal employee. That night, I wrote my resignation at my kitchen table. Short, neutral, one page, no fireworks, just facts. I kept reading it, expecting to feel doubt or regret. Mostly, I felt a strange, steady calm in my chest. Like my body realized the fire drill might finally end. The next morning, I printed the letter before I could chicken out. Walking to my manager's office, my legs felt heavy and light. I closed the door behind me and placed the page down. For real, I said, voice surprisingly even. I am giving notice. They stared at the words on the paper for a beat. You are leaving, they repeated, like the idea confused them. We were discussing expanding your responsibilities, not reducing them. I thought about every extra hour and every edited log. I decided they could sit with their confusion for once. Is there anything we can adjust to change your mind? They leaned forward, trying one last friendly tone. Different accounts, more support, maybe fast-tracking your advancement here. I almost laughed because the offer came too late. Also because advancement in that place just meant burnout with a title. This is not about variety, I answered slowly. I altered my records because you asked me to. I lost consciousness at my workstation after weeks of overload. You texted me about deployments while I was on a monitor. And now there is a job ad for my tasks with better terms. Their cheeks flushed and they looked toward the door quickly. You are taking things out of context, that is unfi. High performers get pulled into tough situations, you know that. We will address the communication missteps but do not overreact. There was that word again, tossed like a dart. Overreact. I thought about the nurse telling me to treat work like poison. About the lawyer marking sections of my notes with a pen. About the way my hands shook opening that job listing. My reaction is proportionate, I said, surprising myself with the phrasing. I stood up, pushing the chair back with a small scrape. I will finish this notice period, nothing more. No weekend calls, no late emergencies, no extra unpaid hours. You can distribute that coverage so I am not a risk. My manager opened their mouth, then closed it without replying. Walking back to my desk, everything looked slightly out of place. People hunched over screens, joking quietly, sipping from mugs. Same scene as every other morning for years. The difference was, I finally had an end date in my head. That simple fact changed how every notification sounded. During those last days, requests still flowed toward me. Can you jump on this escalation? You know their setup. Can you cover this check-in? They prefer talking to you. For once, I let the word no come out without apology. You should have seen the surprise on some of those faces. Human Resources scheduled an exit meeting about midway through. A form, standard questions, practice smiles, polite script. Anything you would like to share about your experience here? I watched their eyes, not their notebook, while I answered. I already spoke to the right people about that, I said. They shifted in their seat, confused by the phrasing. Do you mean leadership or someone outside the organization? Their tone held a slight edge now, curiosity mixed with alarm. I kept my answer vague on purpose, nothing they could pin down. Let us just say I got professional advice this time. On my final afternoon, my manager sent one last message. Despite everything, I hope you remember the good times here. We relied on you heavily, you made a huge impact. I stared at the words, feeling absolutely nothing in response. Then I archived the chat and signed out for good. I packed my few things into a single bag, nothing dramatic. A couple of personal notes, some headphones, a sweater. Coworkers gave quick hugs, quick jokes, quick half whispers. Wish I could leave too, one of them murmured near the door. I just told them to listen when their bodies started shouting. Outside the building, my phone buzzed with system alerts. Access revocation notices, account updates, all the automated housekeeping. I removed the work email profile from my phone with 2 taps. The screen went strangely quiet after that, no more late pings. The absence felt louder than any ringtone ever had. I will not pretend everything snapped perfect right away. Money still mattered, future plans still scared me, habits still clung. But I slept that night without checking any dashboards. No one pinged me at dawn about metrics or incidents. The only thing racing was my own mind, not someone else's platform. Later, when letters started moving and investigations began, I felt shaken again. Hearing my old manager's name in that context felt surreal and heavy. Knowing auditors would dig into the same records I once edited hit hard. I kept thinking about that moment in the office with the locked door. How different it might have been if I had walked out then. I cannot rewrite those chapters, no matter how much I replay them. I can only choose what I do with the pieces I still hold. So I stopped offering myself up every time they felt a chill. If they want warmth now, they can light their own fires. I am done standing in the flames just so they can stay comfortable.